not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff, management, ownership of the station. Jay and Janine are expressing their own opinions, and such is not a substitute for psychological or mental health advice. If you are experiencing an emergency, please hang up and call 911.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show, where we're talking everything personal development, coaching, health, and the law. I'm your host, Jay, here with co-host Janine.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Please join us on Facebook, where we can be found at the Momentum Mindset Show. And if you want to call in and be part of the show, we would love to hear from you. It's 888-565-1470. And if being on live radio is not your thing, no problem. Send us your comments and we will interact with you on Facebook.
Let's create some momentum.
And welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show.
Hello, everybody. Okay, so for those of Art and I aren't the slickest at coming back in sometimes because but now that we don't have actual audio cue, please bear with us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Momentum Mindset Show Goes Legal. I am your host, Janine Davis, and this is attorney
Jay Farrow.
Yay. Okay, everybody, so welcome. Hey, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what we are doing at the Momentum Mindset Show for the next several weeks?
Right. So what we get people to write into the show, and we have gotten a tremendous request for information as it relates to, and I'm going to turn my speakers down a little bit, I think, for what we do. I mean, the crisis that we're going through has created a tremendous amount of legal questions. And we believe that since we are in the legal industry, that our audience for the next number of weeks is best served by us sharing a little insight about some of the common questions that we're getting. And those common questions relate to paying rent, paying mortgages, what is bankruptcy? Are there ways to renegotiate the contracts in my life? Partnership agreements, debt obligations, employee agreements and arrangements. And we get a tremendous amount of questions regarding employees when they go back to work. Can they be forced to go back to work? What if they have pre-existing conditions that could be affected? I mean, we have had a tremendous amount of questions related to all of these things, and we feel that while we're in the space of personal development and creating the mindset of advancing your life, part of that is solutions. And what we have to offer our audience is what we do is legal solutions. At our core, we are a law firm that is comprised of conscious lawyers, conscious, mindful lawyering. And that we've created at the Momentum Mindset Show relates to our other business, which is showing people possibility in their life, not just in their business, but in all aspects of their life, using the tenets of personal development, being intentional, committed action, massive committed action, and creating a tribe, creating solutions through accountability and communication and connection. And we felt that because of the responses that we have for the show, yes, people want to hear about, advancing their life, setting goals, getting their bodies moving, going and getting an exercise program, but it's hard to get unstuck when you have legal problems going on in your life. And
exactly. So I'd like to speak into that a bit. Part of what we would like to talk about moving forward, at least for the next several weeks, is exactly that. We all have certain circumstances that come around in our lives that need or require our attention that could be uncomfortable. And this does include, so this time of shelter in place that's going on with COVID-19 has really illuminated the fact that we get to handle our business no matter what. This 6-week shelter in place, at least in Florida, and for other regions of three more or less similar timelines, doesn't mean that you are, people who wanted to sue you aren't going to sue you. It doesn't mean certain things are not moving forward. And we all get to take this time in our lives to handle our business. Trust, Jay and I included. We discuss, cleaning up certain things, and I know that I need to personally with certain things. And so we want to encourage people to ask questions of legal questions that they may have. And that does include, again, the law pertains to every aspect of our lives. If you've signed a credit card agreement, guess what? You've engaged in a legal document. The law does apply to you. So it's an opportunity for us to kind of meld together both of our life works, right? So again, spinning off of what Jay said, adding the tenets of the personal development, which is being mindful, being intentional, and taking action. We have time to take care of the things that we may be afraid of. We may be afraid to have a conversation with our business partner or our landlord or the bank or the credit card company. But now is the time to take this action. So, Jay, we get a lot of different questions. Where would you like to start first for people?
I would say the one of the largest questions that we're getting out there is, what is this mortgage forbearance? What is this?
Yes.
What is it? What are the laws if I don't pay my rent? But really, as it pertains to mortgages, and a brief background. Since 2008, when I opened Federal Law, we had done a tremendous amount of work. Almost 80% of the practice was devoted to foreclosure defense and mortgage fraud on the bank side, and that was right after the crisis of the Great Recession of 2008. I have hundreds of foreclosure actions I defended all over the state of Florida, some in New York as well. And
Yep.
We supported people with real answers as to what was going on during the crisis. It was like the Wild West. I mean, there was just thousands of foreclosures all that flooded the system at the same time. Some of them took 5 to 7 years to get through the court system. I mean, and I have tried cases against some of the largest mortgage servicers in the country, and knew, really what was going on the ground floor with mortgages at that time, where unlike right now, there was a number of questions of who owned the mortgages, because there were so many mortgages flooded the market between 2004 and 2008, so many mortgage transfers, and it was a mess. Nowadays, we now have a situation where the federal government has mandated certain mortgages, not all mortgages, are permitted to go into some form of forbearance. And one of the questions that we've gotten, Janine, is, what is a forbearance, and how can it affect me?
Yeah.
If stop paying my mortgage right now? And the simple answer is, a forbearance doesn't mean that your mortgage is going away. It only is an agreement between you and the mortgage company that for a period of time, they're not going to expect payments. You're not going to make payments. And during that time, they're not going to consider you to be late. Forbearance, though, got to be careful, because when you look at a forbearance agreement, many times the full amount could be due. Let's say that you take 3 months off paying your mortgage. Could be that 3 months from now, that all of that money is due, and it's going to depend on the type of mortgage that you have. It's going to depend on your lender. So if you're going to decide that, say that you just lost your job and you're going to do this, first thing to do is to make sure that in 3 months, whatever the consequence is going to be, that you're able to handle it. Because many times people say, this is the answer to my prayers, a forbearance agreement. Sometimes they can last up to a year. If you remember down here in Florida, you have these hurricanes that FEMA declares a disaster area and you can have a forbearance for a year or possibly two. We're not necessarily talking about that yet. So looking at what are the consequences in 3 months from now or 6 months from now if I decide to enter this, can I handle getting back into my mortgage? That's
Right. So what is the first step for people, Jay? So you talk about a forbearance agreement, but do you suggest that people call their mortgage company? In other words, what we're trying to avoid is that people arbitrarily they heard of a forbearance and they arbitrarily just stop paying. I think that what you're trying to say also is that there's got to be some form of communication with your mortgage company, correct?
There should be information with the mortgage company is pick up the phone and call your mortgage company or call any attorney. I mean, it's not us. I mean, there are hundreds of attorneys down here, especially that have done the work before in foreclosure defense. And I even heard that some plaintiffs law firms, one in particular I heard on the way over here, that's actually supporting people in getting mortgage forbearances and working with the lender. So there's a number of ways to go online, contact your mortgage lender and speak to somebody about what their programs are, what exactly is happening with your mortgage, and how can you get the support that you need.
Exactly.
Many times, if you just lost your job and you have no idea when you're going to get your job back, you want to be upfront with your mortgage lender to say, hey, it might be a year. Is there a program that's going to allow me to have a year? Now, this is not just pertaining to the mortgages. So I want to kind of just broaden this a little bit as it relates to paying of any rent. That in any contract, whether it's your mortgage or if you have a lease with your landlord, you're going to be able to take a look at it, because there might be some provisions having to do with acts of God, where something like this, a crisis, it could be a hurricane. In this instance, it's the COVID-19, and see what it says. There might be a provision that provides for an excuse for payment of rent for a period of time.
So in a contract, that language is known as force majeure, correct? So when people are looking,
force of nature.
Just so people recognize it. Okay.
There might not. Look, the whole thing is grab the situation by the horns. Whatever you're going through, if you have a mortgage and you can't pay your mortgage, grab the bull by the horns. Contact your mortgage lender. And see what you can do. I mean, the worst thing that you can do is to put your head underneath your blankets. Although I completely understand it, and there's a space for that. So allow yourself to go through what you need to go through. But however you can pick up the phone, because information is power, and information will provide for solutions. If you would like to pick up the phone. I think I see that we're listing our office line down here today for informational purposes.
Yes, and if you have any questions for the radio, also too, feel free to call us at 888-565-1470. We'd love to hear any calls for anybody who has a question immediately. And again, we're going to delve into all kinds of topics, not only mortgage and rent. There are all kinds of other things that we'd like to touch on, and certainly we'd like to touch on any subject that is near and dear to you. But what Jay is saying, and what I was saying as well earlier, so yes, there can be a time for panic and sort of burying your head in the sand, but ultimately information is power. But the real power is applied action with the information that you have. Okay, so Jay, we can take a little break now, and at the other side of our break, we will see you again, and please hit us up with any questions, and we'll just keep the topics coming as well. Thank you.
There is nothing business about getting defrauded. It is always personal. Did you know that there are special laws that allow victims of personal and business crime the ability to prosecute and collect money damages in court? These laws can triple the amount of damages you may be entitled to. Farrell Law Firm is a boutique firm that prosecutes business crimes in civil courts. At Farrell Law Firm, we support people to stand up to the bullies using unorthodox methods of legal practice, which focuses on urgency and the relentless obsession for justice. If you have been the victim of a business, personal crime, or fraud, give us a call today for a free confidential consultation. Farrell Law Firm, 954-252-9818. Again, if you have been the victim of a business, personal crime, or fraud, give Farrell Law Firm a call at 954-252-9818.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show.
With Jay and Janine, give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
So yes, Jay, before we took our brief break, we were discussing forbearance, the importance of reading your contracts, picking up the phone, talking to your mortgage company, talking to your landlord, and certainly picking up the phone and calling an attorney for advice. Knowing that you're not alone in this, I think that everybody right now is very open and willing to work with each other. Listen, these companies at the end of the day want to get paid, so they are going to perhaps facilitate a dialogue in order for that to happen. And if that doesn't work out for you, certainly you're always welcome to call us or any other attorney that you may have a relationship with if you have questions and doubts. But the worst thing that you can do right now is to do nothing, right? And I think that that's one of the things that we want to impart on people. That doing nothing and just assuming that it'll be taken care of because of what's going on in the world is probably not the best bet, and you could find yourself in some hot trouble once everything gets up and going again.
Well, that's really the thing, is that there's so much that's not understood about the word, like, say, forbearance. Like, making a decision not to pay your mortgage is probably one of the hardest decisions that someone can make, especially with a family and with kids, because it's your home. I mean, I remember the calls I would get in the middle of the night. No lie, I get when I was doing a lot of foreclosure defense with people like thinking that the sheriff was outside of their home and was going to take away their house the next day. So it's knowing that that's not going to happen right away, and that there's things that you can do to get back into your mortgage. There's mortgage modifications. There's a lot of different things that can happen. And mind you, that this practice area had dried up really for from where it was back in 2012 and 13, and even especially back in 8, 9, and 10 and 11. It was a heavy volume practice. And we tried a lot of cases. There was a lot of issues in a mortgage foreclosure case. It's not just non-payment, believe it or not. So at this point, this is just the beginning. I mean, with the amount of unemployment claims that have been filed, statistically, foreclosures are going to go up. So you're not alone.
Yes.
The thing is,
right
now there are offering now. It's certain mortgages. Though the forbearance doesn't just say, "Well, I can stop paying my mortgage." It's not an automatic deal. You gotta call your mortgage company. You gotta figure this out and find out what the actual solutions are. And I have a question. Why do HOA continue to charge even though they got PPP money? Okay, so this is, why does a homeowners association continue to charge? The PPP, from what I understand, is the payroll protection plan, and that is for sure that a company is paying their employees, and a homeowners association many times has a multitude of employees. There's people on the board that maybe or may not be getting paid, but there's also people in lower level positions, especially in larger homeowners associations, that do administrative work. They might do maintenance work, and those people may qualify for the PPP program. The homeowners association, and I'm glad this person wrote in. The
Yes,
homeowners
it's a great question.
association, it's a great question for many reasons, because the homeowners association, and this is probably one of the more important pieces of information that we can possibly give out. A condo association or a homeowners association has the power to foreclose. So let's say that you don't pay the association for 2 or 3 months. They can slap a lien on your property and they can foreclose on the lien after they follow certain procedures. So they can, in theory, foreclose on your house for about $2,000 or $3,000. Okay, the homeowners association foreclosures can go quicker and have less issues most of the time than a bank's foreclosure, believe it or not. So if there's any,
so you're saying that a condo association can take your home away from you?
Yeah, it can take your home actually quicker in most instances because the issues are less. It's really whether you paid your homeowner association or not, and whether or not
right. So it's black and white.
It's a very difficult case to defend most of the time, is a homeowners association case or a condo association case. So hear this: just because you got a forbearance on your mortgage does not mean that you got a forbearance on your homeowners association payments. So the one thing that after you call your mortgage company, you want to find out, probably through reading your condominium association docs, your homeowners association docs, that
or
you may
calling
not have.
the homeowners association, right?
Call the homeowners
Directly.
association and find out what are they planning on doing in this circumstance, because homeowners association dues go to maintenance and administration, upkeep of the property management, and when those aren't paid, I mean, you're talking about landscaping. You're talking about the pool at the homeowners association not being tended to. I mean, there are serious issues that relate to this when dues aren't paid. So when you are in an association, you need to make sure you know what's going on with that, and do a subset of this, and I'm sure that this happens quite a bit. If you are leasing a property from a landlord that has an association, you want to make sure that the landlord payments to the association, because that you may have just signed a lease for a year and you may pay your first and your last in security. And if your landlord's not taking care of the HOA, they could lose the property and you could get kicked out. So there's a lot going on here. And now that the concussion of this stay at home has started to fade a little bit, and I went into the office today for the very first time in 7 weeks, and as this is wearing off a little bit about the initial concussion, the reality starts to set in of the bills, of the situation, and of the things that have come up. I spoke to a gentleman today that wants to know, like, what he hasn't necessarily received his mortgage statement. And it's like, well, what do you do with that? You know, it's like there's little things about mail not being received. So there's a number of issues out there. But I really wanted to focus on this piece about the payment, and I'm glad that gentleman wrote that question about associations, because that's the subset, and that's the quiet foreclosure crisis. Because what many didn't realize is that there were not as many, but there was a substantial amount of homeowners association foreclosures during the financial crisis of 2008. Homeowners associations were not getting paid. They came in, they foreclosed on property, and they were able to take title away, and the sheriff knocks on your door because you haven't paid your HOA payment. So be mindful of that. Again, now is the time to ask powerful questions. We're right in the midst of this. The good news is that there's not on this planet that's going to throw somebody out for not paying any rent right now necessarily. Now, mind you, if you haven't paid your rent in a year and you're just using this, you know,
Right. This is not really, we're not necessarily speaking to people who are trying to take advantage of this. Unfortunately, what's going on here right now is that so many people at the same
We have
time find themselves unemployed. So that's really, this is
another
the
question
second
about what about homeowners insurance, escrow, and forbearance? Um, Again, these are okay. When you're paying a mortgage, sometimes you're paying the mortgage,
the
property
insurance.
taxes,
Yes.
insurance that's being held in escrow for payment, and however you have set up your mortgage, and if you're paying all three at the same time, or if you're responsible for paying taxes, if it's escrowed, you got to ask these questions about how all this stuff is being handled. Because just because one piece of your mortgage may be in forbearance, a government forbearance program, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is, which is why it's important to have a professional to review this. Bottom line, you got to call in yourself to try to figure out if you can get all the answers that you can. Be patient, because a lot of these mortgage companies are being overwhelmed. And I know that we were on the phone today with a company that was going to voicemail, and that shouldn't. We're on behalf of one of our clients, and that's a frustrating process. If you can't get an answer, don't give up. If you need to go and seek professional help, whether it be your accountant, whether it be your lawyer, get some answers, because a lot of people think that it just happens that you just get the forbearance. I can't tell you how many times that people came to me after a hurricane and said, well, we were under this FEMA hold and we were a disaster area. Didn't that just automatically mean that I didn't have to make my payments? No, that's not what it means. Right?
Exactly. This is one of the reasons we wanted to have this show. It's dangerous to assume these things, and we want to be able to have a leg up, right? It's enough that we're going through a crisis. This type of information could really support you in sorting out your particular situation. And again, assuming that you just have a forbearance because the nation is on a shelter-in-place order and everything is happening, it could be to your detriment, and we're trying to sort of mitigate that for all of you.
Right, and again, this show is about the momentum mindset. It's about creating the life that you want, beginning with where you're at, and being intentional with your life. All of the things that are happening at this point are happening for you. Is one of the things that we preach on this show, and we hope to keep that in our back pocket, in our thought process, because there are a number of circumstances here which are beneficial to you, and the opportunities here to create. The world is not ending. This is just a shifting. We're all in this together, so we're here because we're personal development people happen to be in the business of a law firm. We want to offer you all as much information based upon the questions that we've been getting, and we've got some great questions from our listeners thus far. What I want to talk about on the other side of this break is the people that are panicking out there that are considering bankruptcy, because they think that the world has crashed, that they've got to run into bankruptcy. I practiced in bankruptcy in the beginning part of my career. I represented a panel of Chapter 7 trustees, and I want to just give some overview of the bankruptcy process on the way over here, and just to suggest that there's likelihood that you can do a lot more outside of the bankruptcy right now than you can inside the bankruptcy, and you might want to consider your options. So we can talk about this on the other side.
Please get in touch with us, 888-565-1470, or please feel free to write in questions on Facebook. See you after the break.
There is nothing business about getting defrauded. It is always personal. Did you know that there are special laws that allow victims of personal and business crime the ability to prosecute and collect money damages in court? These laws can triple the amount of damages you may be entitled to. Farrow Law Firm is a boutique firm that prosecutes business crimes in civil courts. At Farrow Law Firm, we support people to stand up to the bullies using unorthodox methods of legal practice, which focuses on urgency and the relentless obsession for justice. If you have been the victim of a business, personal crime, or fraud, give us a call today for a free confidential consultation. Farrow Law Firm, 954-252-9818. Again, if you have been the victim of a business, personal crime, or fraud, give Farrow Law Firm a call at 954-252-9818.
You've been listening to the Momentum Mindset Show.
With Jay and Janine, give us a call at 888-565-1470. And now back to the show.
Okay, Jay, so before we took our break, you started talking about bankruptcy, and I know that this may be on the tongue. Well, also I want to, before we get into that real quick, one of the things that this crisis has shown us is just how incredibly vulnerable we are. And I mean, all of us. You know, you've got big business that's very, very vulnerable. They're super, super heavy on the overhead, and they are extremely sales dependent. And when that happens, and it dries up, then we find ourselves. This has also given us an opportunity to really reevaluate, also to a little bit about how we live our lives. You know, I think of the couple of heroes that I've got going on in my life right now, and I have a girlfriend who was laid off of a job where she was an executive chef for 20 years, and literally her business closed from one day to the next in the middle of her season. But when I asked her if she was okay, she said, I will have prospects, number one. So she checked her mindset straight away. The second thing is she said, my car is paid, I have money in the bank, and I live my life in such a way that I've always lived below my means. In other words, I live a fabulous life, but I'm mindful of what I spend, so I have plenty of money to live. And so I thought to myself, wow, this person is my hero. Because unbeknownst to her, she is, of course, rattled by the circumstances of COVID-19, as we all are, because it affects our health and it affects our community. And even though she's well, she worries for people who are not. But it gives us a different perspective on how we can organize ourselves moving forward, right? So please, after that little rant on making this, the reason I said it too, though, is to allow this situation to kind of illuminate certain areas where you could tighten the ship for yourself. And while security, I think, is not necessarily what we can't have security 100% of the time, but there are certain things that you can do in your life. And what we're speaking into in today's show is handling your business, right? Making those important phone calls, reaching out to an attorney if you need to, calling your landlord, calling the mortgage company, calling your car company, making sure that you have set yourself up to win as best as possible. Right, Jay? So that being said, we are in a fragile situation. People are vulnerable. So people are also considering bankruptcy. What would you like to say about that, Jay?
Take a deep breath. Before bankruptcy is a creation that allows for a fresh start. It's something that I can use as a last resort because there's so much you can do outside the bankruptcy that you can't necessarily do inside the bankruptcy. And
so give us some examples, please, when you say that. What does that mean for people?
Okay, because sometimes you can negotiate with one creditor. Believe it or not, okay, so people have different kinds of debts. Credit card debt is what's referred to as a dischargeable debt. Other types of discharge. A debt, that means that bankruptcy can once you go through a bankruptcy and you discharge your debt, it means you no longer owe the debt. I mean, the debt
Okay.
has been charged from your life. And there's debts that are dischargeable, and there's some certain debts that are non-dischargeable. Non-dischargeable debts in certain circumstances is a secured debt, which is like a mortgage. Let's say that you have a litany of debt. You have your credit card debt, you have your mortgage debt. Let's say you have your car payments, and then you have other payments that are going on, and you just lost your job, and you don't know if you're qualifying for unemployment yet. You don't know if a number of different scenarios. I say take a deep breath, okay? And I know that it's difficult, but before you press that bankruptcy button, let's take a look at all of the things that you have on your plate, because there is no such thing as someone knocking on your door with a gun and saying, I want this particular debt. Like, in other words, American Express can only call you, and I understand the phone calls are harassing and it's annoying, and I get it, but that's all they can do. So you could turn your phone off, or you can just say that, please text me, or you don't answer blocked numbers. Thank God that we live in a society that right now that we can see all the phone calls that are coming in and who's really calling us. And if it says scam likely, don't answer the phone. But you get to just let's look at everything, because like you said, you can call American Express, you can call Discover Card and say, I just lost my job. What are the deferment payments that I can go on right now? You can negotiate your interest rate. You can ask for those payments to be taken off for a number of months. Each creditor is different. Each creditor was going to give you certain options. They may even say, you know what, pay 60% of the debt and we'll consider this debt to be gone. So if you list out all of these things and you see what you have on your plate first, before you start running into and thinking the word bankruptcy, take a deep breath, because you're going to be able to negotiate with one and maybe not the other outside of a bankruptcy. When you're in a bankruptcy and there's a trustee, you basically all the debtors are thrown into separate pots, where you have the dischargeable debts, you have the secured obligations, you have other obligations like child support and stuff that you can't necessarily manage. I mean, there's things that you can do right now to just give yourself a break and look at your entire financial picture before you start thinking about before that. We have another question. How can hire you if they get okay? Well, yeah, you can give my office a call at 954-252-9818. What we're doing on the show today and for the number of weeks, though, really is generally responding to general circumstances that people have written into me. They've direct messaged me from my Facebook, from the Momentum Mindset Show, and we're filling a need here that our community needs us. I mean, so yeah, certainly we'd appreciate you to call us and get more specific about your specific legal issue. You can certainly call our office. What we like to do on this show is just give our community the sense of, like, number one, there's information that's out there, that the world isn't over, and most importantly, Janine, no one is going to be knocking on your door, okay? And no sheriff is going to be able to.
This is the greatest fear that people have.
Right, and so if you're looking at the credit card companies can't come and do their thing. I mean, yes, your car can get repossessed, but there's ways to handle that as well. Okay, take a deep breath. You've got this. Okay, the world is not crashing down, and thank God we live in a country that there are no debtors' prison. That no one's going to be taking out of your house in the middle of the night to go to some place where you're going to get convinced to pay one debt and not another debt. When you take that deep breath and realize that okay, I have this space to make some decisions, then let's see what's available. And thank God right now there's an answer to your mortgage. Maybe that you can call your mortgage company and get a forbearance. You can call your landlord and say, I just lost my job. This is my plan going forward. I don't know when it's going to be. I'm asking you for this thing for the rent, and then I will keep you in the loop. As soon as I have something, you have something, and that renegotiate at this thing, because believe me, you're not alone. Okay,
You're not alone.
yeah, 1
And
in 3 Americans.
are really important. So I know of somebody close to me who their new contract for rent was up, coming up in June. And so they got an email from this large association that handles the property management for the rent. And they were so concerned because of course the rent had actually gone up. It typically goes up every year. So um, he went back to them and simply said, listen, I'm a very good tenant. I pay you on time or early every month. Would you consider leaving my rent for the next year at what it is? And lo and behold, this big, monstrous, scary corporation came back and said, yes, how soon can you sign on the dotted line? Because they also know that not everybody right now there's some fragility in our ecosystem here in our economic system, and they'd rather have a bird in the hand than let him go over a few $100s. So it's really important to have this communication and these open lines of communication with people, with the businesses in your life, with different things. um, and Jay's right, don't press the panic button just yet. Make a list of things, all of your obligations, and start dialing and seeing what you can negotiate, who's willing to work with you. And in some instances, Jay, people are facing that they have to go to bankruptcy. So, there's a lid for every pot. So what do you suggest for people who really they were fragile before and they're even more fragile now economically? What would you suggest to them in terms, if they've got to press that bankruptcy button, what do you suggest for them?
Well, then, go get a qualified bankruptcy attorney to do that work. I mean, that's not something that we do at our law firm, but I know plenty of people. I'm happy to refer people to some good hands. Generally speaking, just so you know what you're up against, I mean, I've heard quotes that $2,500 to get into a Chapter 13 or Chapter 7 is about some of the going rates. The differences between the two. Chapter 13 is geared towards you saving your house. You can save your house in both a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. Certain things that you have in your life are going to be exempt from the bankruptcy estate and the trustee, and that's some of your personal property up to, I think, $7,000 or $10,000 in Florida is going to be exempt. So that way you're able to keep certain things. So it doesn't mean that anybody's coming into your house necessarily to take everything away. But if you have a Monet in your house, or if you have this really expensive jewelry, all of that stuff is going to be your assets. So even if you're on the verge of panic, and make sure that you know what you're doing before you're going to press that bankruptcy button. Because like I said, there's a lot of stuff that you can do outside the bankruptcy right now that wasn't available 3 months ago. And that's why you want to know what your options are. Because once you're in the bankruptcy, from there on out, for the rest of your life, no matter if people say, well, in 7 years, it's off my credit. Yeah, well, you're going to talk to some people. They're going to ask you in your entire life, have you ever declared bankruptcy before? And bankruptcy is a solution. It is a viable solution. It's a healthy solution. There's no shame in bankruptcy. I'm saying there's options that you have to be mindful of before you pull that trigger. And one thing that we haven't touched on today, but I did put it on our post, was about employment. And
yes, thank you for that. People are lighting up. We've gotten a lot of questions about employment. So anything that you could touch on that, I think, would be very valuable for people.
Well, there's a lot of questions. The main question that I've gotten over the last week from friends and from some people in our Momentum Mindset community, and even from the law firm, is can they force me to go back to work? Can they force me to go back to work even though I'm afraid of getting sick? And one person said that they thought they're in, they have one of these pre-existing conditions and they're terrified to go back to work. And they're terrified that if the state opens up, and here's the thing, there's no good answer right now, but I can tell you what the laws say now. that if you do have a disability, and it relates to, let's say, you having the virus or otherwise, there are laws that may protect you from being terminated based on the fact that you just gotten the disease. If you're healthy and you don't want to go back and you have fear of this, and you get fired, unfortunately, we're getting into a uncharted territory. And
Yeah.
the best thing that you can do, again, if you have an employee contract, you want to pull out that employee contract and take a look and see, what are your rights. I don't know ultimately what the law is going to come down and say after someone goes to court for a number of years. I do know this. In any circumstance, any legal circumstance, if you tackle it head on and you have the conversation with your employer and you say, listen, I don't feel comfortable coming in, what will this look like? And how can we work this through? Ask for an accommodation. Because listen, at the end of the day, a person in a black robe is only there to give you the ultimate decisions on things. People have the right to resolve things amongst themselves all the time. And this case by case basis, I don't think that there is a one size fits all for employment. There are essential employees. There are non-essential employees. There are employees that it would take nothing but a flick of a switch to work from home. And so asking someone to come into the office who's terrified of COVID might be an unreasonable reason to terminate them. Florida, though, is an at-will,
Right. So could you speak a little bit into this whole Florida's an at-will state? Because I think the way most employees have it or understand it is that really their employer can fire them for any reason. So could there feasibly be under that, what are the protections of employees? Or are there really none?
Well, the general protection for employees is you can't get fired for a discriminatory purpose, even though it's at will. So you can't get fired for your sex, national origin, marital status. I mean, there are things that you cannot be terminated for, even though it's an at will state. Your disability, you can't be terminated because you have a disability. I mean, and that's like some of the things why you can't be terminated. Now with all of this now coming to fruition, where some states are opening wide up, some states are not. Some businesses are. Again, you want to talk to your employer and find out if they're calling you back to work and you don't feel comfortable. What are your alternatives? Is it my way or the highway? You need to find that out. And then certainly this is the good thing about employment law, is that there's not going to be any shortage of employment lawyers, and we do some of this work, to have a consultation with you for free about what they think that this case may go, or what your options actually are. But common sense says have a conversation with your employer, your supervisor, your manager. First of all, report the fact that you have concerns. I mean, find out what your options are about working from the house or from a remote location, and see if there's a phase-in plan. And also, listen, check in with yourself and find out if you are maybe one of the people that are not one of these, of the most concerned classes. And if you can wear a mask, and if you can actually do your job, you might want to think about those things as well. Because there's a lot of fear out there. And as far as I can tell, really nobody knows exactly what's going on with this thing, when it's going to end. I saw a 2-year report today that this might go on a pandemic for the next 2 years. Look, I mean, my thoughts about that is the common sense approach. Really check in with yourself and find out, if I did wear a mask, if I can practice social distancing, if there are people out there certainly that I trust more than others that are giving out information, and I seem to side with people that are saying be cautious, be mindful, and also go out and live your life to the extent that you can. If you have pre-existing conditions and you're being forced back to work, then you might have a conversation of having a reason or a case if you get fired. If you're, if you're not, then see, check in with yourself, put on the mask and do what you can. If you can't social distance at work and they're forcing people, more than 10 people to work, again, check in with where you're at. So many people have lost jobs, and so many
Yes.
people are like, I lost my jobs, and now all this stuff is piling up on me at once. I'm saying take a second to outline your life, put it all down on paper. This is exactly what we do on this show. We talk about, your goals. This is a moment where you have decided that you can no longer, live the way that you lived yesterday. Great.
Correct.
Good for you. It might be the best thing that's ever happened to you is to look at your life from the perspective of what's going on and what are my possibilities.
Yes.
But
It's a time and opportunity really to frame your life if you can. If you have that ability to sort of reframe your life and really dig into organizing yourself in such a way that supports you moving forward and having these open conversations with your employer, your landlord, your mortgage company, your car company, your credit card company, talking to people, asking for help from friends and family, seeking the advice of an accountant, an attorney, etc. Even attorneys work with people who are experiencing financial hardships. There are many ways to get to Rome, but doing nothing is certainly the path of most resistance, and it will all, it comes back on you. And what we're trying to support you all with is to empower yourselves to regain your sense of your footing in this new world, kind of.
And empower yourself with information. Information is power, and there's a tremendous amount of information out there, tremendous amount of opportunities to get you through this. I mean, if there's going to be, whether it be a mortgage forbearance or renegotiating your lease, renegotiating your partnership agreement, with your business. I mean, people that are operating their limited liability companies out there, and if someone has the ability to give more right now, and you can renegotiate the terms of things, it's a great time to do it. And there's, everybody now is open to conversations. And I will say that in the next month or so, there's going to be more room for these conversations. And I'll give this example to you. 6 weeks ago, I felt awkward about having a mask in my house, like the fact that I actually had a mask. Then I took it with me to a Walgreens, and I took it off before I walked into, this is 6 weeks ago, because I was like, I'm not one of those guys that wear the mask. I mean, I put it on, I was like, I felt ridiculous, and then a couple weeks later, I wore the mask, but I took it off kind of like before. I wasn't really paying attention to it. Now I try to get into the CVS, and I cannot walk in without a mask, nor would I walk in without a mask. And then I was in
Correct.
my office today with just you, and
Yep.
I wore the mask for the entire time I was there.
Exactly.
So
I was going to say, be sensible. Even Jay and I, we're healthy, right? But for the sake of each other's health and really just being mindful of the protocols that are in place, we are amidst a pandemic. We can't fall asleep on being sensible either, right? So again, the hygiene, the masks, yeah. Go ahead.
What I was saying is that what I wasn't willing to do or appreciate or acknowledge or admit that this was actually going on 6 weeks ago. Now I'm like washing my hands 9 times a day. I'm wearing the mask, and I'm more open to conversations with people about, hey, I need to renegotiate something with you, and that could be a number of different things, but I'm more at ease discussing what's really happening here. 30 million unemployment applications have been, you have over 1 million cases, over 60,000 deaths. You have all of these things that are going up and up and up. And now this is going to trickle its way through our economy. So don't feel bad because you can't pay your mortgage. Don't feel bad because you can't pay your rent. Don't feel bad. I mean, because now, there are opportunities now for you to renegotiate your life and maybe come out a winner, a very big winner.
Definitely. So that's the last little nugget we have for you guys. And in the interim, please hit us up on social media, write to us, call us at the office, email. You can get in touch with us, and we're here in the service of people. That's really what a lawyer does. They're in service to people. So any questions or concerns, please reach out. We're stronger together.
Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Momentum Mindset Show. For your hosts, Jay and Janine, we'll see you here next week. Thank you for being real, authentic, and honest.
If you'd like to reach us, please contact us on our Facebook page, The Momentum Mindset Show, or on our office phone line, which is 954-559-6987.
We are stronger together.
And remember, keep going.